Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the biggest secret in human history. Outside the thick metal windows, asteroids drifted slowly through space like floating mountains. Hidden among them was the TFS Stormbreaker, a ship so large it could hold a small city inside its hull. Jake looked at the message on his screen again. The words made his stomach feel heavy. The Zephyrian Empire wanted Earth to give up all human colonies beyond the solar system. They had 48 hours to decide. After that, the aliens would come with their fleet to take the colonies by force. "Captain," said Lisa Bennett, walking up to him. She was the chief engineer, a woman who could fix anything and build things that should not work. Her hands were always dirty with oil and metal dust. "The ship is ready. All systems are working perfectly." Jake nodded, but did not smile. The Stormbreaker was ready, but was humanity ready for what would happen next? For 300 years, humans had been the small players in galactic politics. The big alien empires treated them like children who could barely tie their own shoes. "How many ships do they have?" Jake asked Tony Rodriguez, his weapons officer. Tony was a quiet man who knew more about alien technology than most aliens did. 212 ships, sir," Tony said, reading from his computer. "All of them bigger than anything we have ever built." "Well, anything they know we built." The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. 20 people worked at their stations, each one knowing they might die in the next few days. But none of them looked scared. They looked angry. Amy Foster, the ship's computer expert, turned in her chair. "Sir, we are getting another message from Ambassador Parker on Earth." "Put it through," Jake said. Helen Parker's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired, like she had not slept in days. Behind her, Jake could see the United Nations building where humans tried to talk, their way out of trouble with aliens who did not want to listen. "Captain Morrison," Helen said, "I have tried everything. The Galactic Council will not change their minds. They say humans have grown too fast and taken too much space. They want us back in our little corner of the galaxy." Jake knew there was more to it than that. In the last 10 years, human explorers had found strange ruins on several colony worlds. The ruins were old, older than any alien civilization in the galaxy. But they looked human. The aliens did not like humans asking questions about those ruins. "What about the other species?" Jake asked. "Will any of them help us?" Helen shook her head. "The Crystalline Hegemony and the Bio Collective are both supporting. The Zephyrians. They say it is for galactic peace, but I think they are all scared of something." The message ended, and the bridge was quiet again. Jake walked to the front window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Admiral Kethvar was leading the biggest alien fleet ever assembled toward Earth. The Zephyrian Admiral thought. This would be easy. He thought humans would surrender or die. Quickly, Dr. Paul Wright, the ship's doctor, came onto the bridge. He was an older man with gray hair who had seen too many wars. "Captain, the crew is ready." "All 3,000 of them?" "They know what we are facing." "And they still want to fight?" Jake asked. "They want to fight more than ever," Paul said. "Nobody likes being told they do not deserve the stars." Carol Hughes, the navigation officer, called out from her station. "Captain, Admiral Carter is sending us a message from Earth Command." Admiral Rick Carter appeared on the screen. He was Jake's old teacher at the military academy, a man who had spent his whole life preparing for a war he hoped would never come. "Jake," the Admiral said, "the aliens think we are weak because we have never shown them our real strength. They think our ships are slow and our weapons are toys. Today, we show them what humans can do when someone tries to take our home." Jake straightened his uniform. "What are your orders, sir?" "Take the Stormbreaker and remind the galaxy why humans." named hurricanes after the most dangerous storms on Earth. Show them that when humans get angry, we do not just fight back. We bring the storm. The message ended. Jake turned to face his crew. Every person on the bridge was looking at him, waiting for orders that would change everything. Amy, send a message to all stations, Jake said. Tell them we are going to war. Lisa, I want the engines at full power. Tony, charge all weapons. Corral, set course for the Jupiter system. That is where we will meet the Zephyrian fleet. Sir, said Danny Kim, the young tactical officer, there are over 200 enemy ships. We are just one ship. Jake smiled for the first time in days. Danny, they do not know what kind of ship we are. For 15 years, the best human minds have been building something the galaxy has never seen before. Today, we find out if it was enough. The Stormbreaker began to move, leaving its hiding place among the asteroids. The ship was huge, over 2 kilometers long and half a kilometer wide. It did not look like the beautiful flowing ships that aliens built. It looked like what it was, a human weapon designed by people who knew how to survive against impossible odds. Beth Turner, the communications officer, looked up from her station. Captain, we are receiving signals from human colonies across the galaxy. They know what is happening. What are they saying? Jake asked. Some are cheering. Some are scared. But they are all watching. Jake nodded. The whole galaxy would be watching soon. For 3 centuries, humans had been treated like the weak younger brothers of more advanced species. Today, that would change. Today, the galaxy would learn that. Humans had been hiding in the outer edge of space for a reason. As the Stormbreaker flew toward Jupiter, its crew prepared for a battle that would decide the future of humanity. They did not know they were about to uncover secrets that would shake the very foundations of galactic civilization. They only knew they were going to fight for their people and their right to exist among the stars. The storm was coming, and the galaxy was not ready. The TFS Stormbreaker came out of hyperspace near Jupiter, like a metal mountain appearing from nowhere. The Zephyrian fleet was waiting, their ships spread out in perfect formation around the gas giant's largest moons. Admiral Kethfor had positioned his forces exactly as the military books taught, with heavy ships in front and support vessels behind. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge and watched the alien fleet on the main screen. 200 ships, each one gleaming with energy shields and bristling with weapons that had conquered dozens of worlds. The Zephyrian ships were beautiful in their own way, with smooth curves and crystal growths that caught the light from Jupiter's storms. They look like jewelry, said Tony Rodriguez, checking his weapon systems. Pretty, but I wonder how hard they hit. We are about to find out, Jake replied. He opened a channel to the alien fleet. This is Captain Morrison of the Terran, Federation ship Stormbreaker. You have entered human space without permission. The response came quickly. Admiral Kethfor's face filled the screen, his lizard-like features showing amusement. The Zephyrian had 4 eyes and skin that changed color when he was angry or excited. Right now, his skin was a calm blue-green. Captain Morrison, Kethfor, said in perfect English, I am impressed that humans built such a large ship, but size means nothing without proper weapons and shields. Surrender now, and I will allow your crew to live as prisoners. Jake looked around his bridge. Amy Foster was running final checks on the ship's AI systems. These computers were so advanced that most aliens thought they were impossible to build. Dr. Paul Wright was monitoring the medical bay, ready for wounded crew members. Carol Hughes had the ship positioned perfectly for what was about to happen. Admiral, Jake said, you are about to learn something important about humans. We do not surrender. We do not give up. And we certainly do not let anyone tell us where we can and cannot live. Kethfor's skin began to turn orange, a sign of anger in Zephyrians. Your species has always been stubborn. Very well. Your ship will become a monument to human foolishness. The alien admiral cut the connection. On the tactical display, Jake could see the Zephyrian ships moving into attack formation. They moved slowly and carefully, following patterns that had worked for 1,000 years against every enemy they had ever faced. "Annie," Jake said to his tactical officer, "what do our computers say about their formation?" Danny Kim studied his screens. The young man had spent years learning about alien battle tactics. "They are using Formation 7, sir. Standard attack pattern for engaging a single large target. They will try to surround us and hit us from all sides with energy beams and missiles. And what do they expect us to do? Fight back with our own energy beams and missiles, sir. Maybe try to ram one of their ships if we get desperate." Jake smiled. "Amy, are our special systems ready?" Amy nodded. "All kinetic accelerators are charged and ready. Quantum torpedoes loaded. Point defense systems online. The aliens have never seen anything like this, Captain." The first Zephyrian attack came. Exactly as expected. Bright blue energy beams lanced out from dozens of ships, hitting the Stormbreaker's shields. The ship shook slightly, but the shields held easily. Then came the missiles, hundreds of them, each one seeking to punch through human defenses. The Stormbreaker did not fight back the way the aliens expected. "Tony, show them what a kinetic accelerator can do," Jake ordered. The Stormbreaker's main guns fired, but instead of energy beams, they launched solid tungsten rods accelerated to 15% of light speed. The projectiles moved so fast they were almost invisible, just streaks of light crossing space. The first rod hit a Zephyrian cruiser dead center. The alien ship's shields might as well have been made of paper. The tungsten rod punched through the shield, through the hull, and out the other side, leaving a perfectly round hole. The ship broke apart in seconds. "Impossible," whispered Beth Turner, who was listening to alien communications. "They are saying it is impossible. Their shields have never been breached like that." "Fire quantum torpedoes," Jake commanded. These weapons were even stranger. The torpedoes seemed to pass through the alien shields without touching them, peering inside the enemy ships before exploding. The aliens had no defense against weapons that could ignore their protective barriers. In the first minute of fighting, 5 Zephyrian ships were destroyed. In the second minute, 7 more. The alien formation began to break apart as ships tried to get away from weapons they did not understand. "Their admiral is calling for new tactics," Beth reported. "He is, telling his ships to spread out and attack from maximum range." But spreading out only made things easier for the Stormbreaker's point defense systems. When the aliens fired their missiles from far away, the human ship had more time to shoot them down. Streams of plasma turned incoming projectiles into glowing dust clouds. Lisa Bennett called from the engine room. "Captain, all systems are running perfectly. The ship can take a lot more punishment than this." "How are our weapons holding up?" Jake asked Tony. "We have barely used 10% of our ammunition, sir. At this rate, we could fight for hours." Admiral Kethfor tried a desperate tactic. He ordered his fastest ships to charge straight at the Stormbreaker, hoping to get close enough to use their most powerful weapons. It was a brave move, but it played right into human hands. The Stormbreaker's close-range weapons were designed to stop exactly this kind of attack. Fusion lances, scaled-up versions of human mining equipment, carved through alien hulls like hot knives through butter. Pulse cannons fired so fast they seemed like continuous streams of light. Within 12 minutes of the battle's start, 17 Zephyrian ships were floating debris. The rest of the alien fleet was retreating as fast as their engines could carry them. "Should we pursue?" asked Carol Hughes. Jake shook his head. "Let them go. They need to tell the galaxy what happened here today." On the communications channel, Admiral Kethver's voice was shaking. "This is not over, human. The entire galaxy will come for you now." "Let them come," Jake replied. "But Admiral, you might want to tell them to bring more ships. 200 was not nearly enough." As the Zephyrian fleet disappeared into hyperspace, the bridge of the Stormbreaker was quiet. The crew had just won the most one-sided space battle in galactic history. But Jake knew this was only the beginning. "Beth, what are you picking up on the communications networks?" he asked. "Every species in the galaxy is talking about us, sir. Some are scared, some are excited, but they are all talking. The crystalline hegemony is calling an emergency council meeting. The Bio-Collective is running threat assessments on human capabilities. And what about our colonies? They are celebrating, Captain. Every human world in the galaxy knows what we just did." Jake looked out at the stars beyond Jupiter. Somewhere out there, the three most powerful civilizations in the galaxy were making plans. They would not underestimate humanity again. The next battle would be much harder. But for now, the Stormbreaker had done what it was built to do. It had shown the galaxy that humans were not the weak species everyone thought they were. The storm had begun, and there was no stopping it now, Doctor. Paul Wright came onto the bridge with a medical report. "No casualties, Captain. Not even a scratch. The aliens never got close enough to hurt us." "Good," Jake said, "because I have a feeling we are going to need every person we have for what comes next." The Stormbreaker turned toward the inner solar system, heading for Earth to resupply and prepare for the real war that was about to begin. Behind them, the wreckage of Zephyrian ships served as a message to anyone who thought humans would go. Quietly into the night, the galaxy had been warned. Humanity was done hiding. News of the battle near Jupiter spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On the crystal world of Shalandros, Empress Shalandra watched the recordings of human weapons tearing through Zephyrian ships. Her crystalline body glowed with worry as she called an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the war room of the Stormbreaker, looking at reports from across human space. The ship was flying toward the Centauri colonies, where another alien fleet was gathering. This time, it was not just Zephyrians. The crystalline hegemony had sent their own ships to help. "Captain," said Beth Turner from her communication station, "we are getting messages from every human colony in the galaxy. Most are celebrating, but some are scared about what the aliens will do next." Jake nodded. He understood their fear. Beating one alien fleet was impressive, but there were thousands of alien ships in the galaxy. If all the major powers worked together, they could overwhelm even the Stormbreaker. "What are the aliens saying to each other?" Jake asked. Beth listened to her equipment for a moment. "The three big empires are talking about forming an alliance, sir. They have never worked together before, but they are all scared of us now." Danny Kim looked up from his tactical station. "Sir, we are getting new intelligence about the enemy fleet at Centauri. It is not just ships this time. The crystalline hegemony sent their mobile fortress, the Crystal Vanguard." Jake had heard of the Crystal Vanguard. It was a living ship, grown rather than built, that could change its shape during battle. The crystalline beings were masters of gravity technology, able to crush enemy ships or tear them apart with gravitational fields. "How big is it?" Jake asked. 5 kilometers long, sir. Twice our size, and it has 30 escort ships with it. Amy Foster turned from her computer station. "Captain, I have been analyzing the data from our last battle. The aliens' weapons and shields work differently than we expected. I think there might be a reason for that." "What do you mean?" "Their technology seems designed to fight against specific types of weapons and defenses. Almost like they built their fleets to fight an enemy that used the same technology we are using now." Jake thought about that. For months, human scientists had been studying the mysterious ruins found on colony worlds. The ruins were clearly human in origin, but they were older than human civilization should be. Much older. Dr. Susan Lai, the ship's expert on alien artifacts, had been studying these ruins for years. She came onto the bridge carrying a tablet full of research data. "Captain," she said, "I have been comparing the energy signatures from our weapons with readings from the ruins. They match perfectly. Whoever built those ruins had technology just like ours." "That is impossible," said Lisa Bennett, who had come up from the engine room. "Humans only developed this technology in the last 15 years. "Maybe," Susan said, "but the ruins are definitely human. The writing, the architectural style, even the genetic traces we found. It is all human, but from thousands of years ago." Before Jake could respond, Carl Hughes called out from navigation. "Captain, we are approaching the Centauri system. The enemy fleet is in position around the fourth planet." On the main screen, the crystal Vanguard appeared like a giant jewel floating in space. Its surface was covered with thousands of crystal formations that caught and reflected light in beautiful patterns. But Jake knew those crystals were weapons, each one capable of tearing apart a normal spaceship. "Open a channel," Jake ordered. The face that appeared on screen was not entirely human-looking. War leader Thexanol of the crystalline hegemony had features that seemed carved from living diamond. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "Human vessel," Thexanol said. "I have studied the recordings of your battle with the Zephyrians. Impressive, but crude. We crystallens have perfected the art of space warfare over 10,000 years. Surrender now, and we will study your ship." "Before we destroy it, I have a better idea," Jake replied. "Why don't not you surrender to us? We promise to be gentle when we take your ship apart to see how it works." Thesnol's crystalline features showed what might have been amusement. "Your weapons cannot harm the crystal Vanguard, human. Our ship is alive. It heals damage as fast as you can cause it. Our gravity weapons will crush your metal shell like an egg." The alien cut the connection and immediately attacked. The crystal Vanguard's weapons were unlike anything the humans had faced before. Instead of energy beams or missiles, the alien ship created gravitational fields that tried to crush the Stormbreaker from all sides. The human ship groaned and shook as invisible forces pressed against its hull. Normal ships would have been flattened in seconds, but the Stormbreaker's armor was designed to handle pressures that should not exist. "Tony, return fire," Jake ordered. The Stormbreaker's kinetic accelerators fired, launching tungsten rods at the crystal Vanguard. But the alien ship did something unexpected. Its hull flowed like liquid, creating a hole where the projectile would hit. The tungsten rod passed harmlessly through empty space. "The ship is changing shape," Benny reported. "It is adapting to our attacks." "Then we adapt too," Jake said. "Amy, switch to wide-area fusion lances. If it wants to make holes, we will make the holes bigger." The fusion lances were designed for mining asteroids, weapons that could melt solid rock in seconds. When they hit the crystal Vanguard, the alien ship could not create holes fast enough. The beams carved deep cuts into its living hull, but the ship began healing almost immediately. The crystal formations on its surface glowed brighter as the vessel repaired itself. "It is working," Tony said, "but not fast enough. The ship heals faster than we can damage it." That was when Matt Taylor, the ship's security chief, made a suggestion that changed everything. "Captain, what if we do not try to destroy the ship? What if we board it instead?" Jake stared at him. "Board a 5-kilometer alien fortress? That sounds like suicide." "Maybe, sir. But our sensors show that the ship's healing ability comes from central control nodes. If we can capture those nodes, we might be able to stop the healing." It was a crazy plan, but Jake had learned that crazy plans sometimes worked best against aliens who expected humans to be predictable. Amy, launch boarding pods. Target the areas where our sensors detect the strongest bioenergy readings. The Stormbreaker fired dozens of small pods that punched through the Crystal Vanguard's hull like bullets. Each pod carried a team of human Marines wearing advanced armor and carrying weapons designed to work in alien environments. Matt Taylor led the assault personally, his teams fighting their way through corridors made of living crystal. The alien ship tried to defend itself by changing the shape of its passages, but the humans adapted faster than the ship could react. "We found the control center," Matt reported over the radio. "It is like nothing I have ever seen. The walls are covered with some kind of alien writing, but there are human symbols mixed in." "Human symbols?" Jake asked. "Are you sure?" "Positive, sir. Dr. Lee needs to see this." Susan Lee watched the video feed from the boarding team and gasped. The symbols on the alien ship's walls were the same ones found in the mysterious ruins. Unhuman colonies. But these symbols were integrated into crystalline technology, as if the two civilizations had worked together. "Captain," Susan said, "I think the crystallines did not build this ship alone. I think they had help from ancient humans." Before Jake could respond, the Crystal Vanguard suddenly stopped attacking. War Leader Thexanol appeared on the communication screen again, but now he looked worried. "Human Captain," he said, "your people have accessed areas of our ship that have been sealed for millennia. How do you know the old codes?" "What old codes?" Jake asked. "The genetic locks that protect our most ancient technology. Only those who helped us build these ships should be able to open them." Jake looked at Susan Ley, who was staring at her data with wide eyes. "Captain," she whispered, "the energy signatures in the alien ship match the ruins exactly. Humans did not just find ruins on our colonies. We built them. Thousands of years ago, humans were part of galactic civilization. The revelation hit everyone on the bridge at the same time. Humans were not newcomers to the galaxy. They were coming home, and someone had tried very hard to make sure they forgot where they came from." Captain Jake Morrison stood in the captured control room of the Crystal Vanguard, looking at walls covered with symbols that should not exist. Human writing mixed with crystalline technology, creating patterns that hurt his head to look at. Susan Lee was taking readings with every instrument she could carry. "The genetic locks recognize human DNA," Susan said, her voice full of wonder. "But not just any human DNA. It has to be from people who carry specific genetic markers. Markers that suggest their ancestors once lived in space for generations." Matt Taylor's Marines had secured the alien ship, but War Leader Thexanol was not acting like a defeated enemy. Instead, he seemed confused and almost excited. "Your species was supposed to be gone forever," Thexanol said over the communication system. "The Council of Voices said you had destroyed yourselves in civil war thousands of years ago." "Who were the Council of Voices?" Jake asked. "The ancient government that ruled the galaxy before the current empires. They disappeared the same time your people did. We found their abandoned worlds and built our civilizations on top of them." Back on the Stormbreaker's bridge, Amy Foster was analyzing data from the captured alien ship. What she found made her call Jake immediately. "Captain, you need to see this. The Crystal Vanguard's computers have star maps that show human colonies from thousands of years ago. But they are not where we expected them to be." "What do you mean?" "Sir, according to these maps, the ancient human empire was not based on Earth. It was centered around the galactic core, where the most powerful civilizations live today." Jake felt his understanding of history crumble. If humans had once controlled the center of the galaxy, then what had happened to drive them to the outer rim? And why did no one remember? "Amy, set course for the galactic core. I want to see these ancient human worlds for myself." "Sir," said Danny Kim, That will take us right through the heart of enemy territory. Every major alien empire has fleets between here and there. Then we will go through them, Jake said. The galaxy is about to learn that humans do not run from fights. The journey toward the galactic core became a running battle that lasted for weeks. The Stormbreaker faced attacks from biocollective swarm fleets, Zephyrian battle groups, and ships from dozens of smaller species. But each battle taught Jake's crew new ways to use their technology. Tony Rodriguez developed new fighting tactics based on human unpredictability. While alien fleets followed ancient battle plans, the Stormbreaker fought like a force of nature, striking where enemies least expected and disappearing before they could respond. The breakthrough came during the Battle of Kepler Station, where the Biocollective deployed their most feared weapon, Swarm Fleet Alpha. These were not ships in the normal sense, but living creatures the size of buildings that could fly through space and devour entire planets. Dr. Paul Wright studied the biological data from the swarm creatures and made a discovery that changed the battle. Captain, these things are not natural. They were designed by someone who understood both alien biology and human genetic engineering techniques. Human techniques? Jake asked. Yes, sir. The genetic patterns match research files from our own medical databases. Whoever created these creatures learned from human scientists. That gave Paul an idea. If the swarm creatures were partly based on human science, then human medical knowledge could be used against them. He synthesized a virus that attacked the creatures' nervous systems, causing them to turn on each other instead of attacking the Stormbreaker. The Biocollective's most powerful weapon destroyed itself in less than 4 hours. Queen Mind Nexus. The central intelligence of the Biocollective sent a message to the Stormbreaker after the battle. Her voice was like a chorus of different creatures speaking together. Human vessel, your medical knowledge is familiar to us. Our genetic archives contain human research data from the time of the Great Silence. How do you possess information that was supposed to be destroyed? What was the Great Silence? Jake asked. The time when all communication stopped between the galactic core and the outer rim. When the ancient human empire vanished and the Council of Voices fell silent. We thought both civilizations had destroyed each other in war. More pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. There had been some kind of disaster thousands of years ago that had destroyed galactic civilization and scattered humanity to the outer edge of space. But what kind of disaster could make an entire species forget their own history? As the Stormbreaker approached the galactic core, Carol Hughes detected something impossible on her navigation sensors. Captain, I am reading massive energy signatures from the Nexus Prime system, but they are not coming from the planets. They are coming from artificial structures in deep space. What kind of structures? I do not know, sir. They are bigger than anything in our databases. Some of them are larger than moons. When the Stormbreaker dropped out of hyperspace near Nexus Prime, the crew saw something that took their breath away. Floating in space around the system star were enormous metal structures, each one big enough to hold millions of people. But they were dark and lifeless, like abandoned cities drifting through the void. Those are space habitats, Lisa Bennett said, studying the structures with engineering sensors. Built to house entire populations, but they have been empty for thousands of years. Dr. Susan Lee was scanning the structures with every instrument on the ship. Captain, I am detecting human genetic material on those stations. And the construction techniques match the ruins we found on our colonies. So these were human cities? Not just cities, sir. These were the capital worlds of the ancient human empire, the heart of a civilization that once ruled the galaxy. As the Stormbreaker moved closer to the largest habitat, something unexpected happened. Lights began to flicker on across its surface. Ancient machines were waking up after thousands of years of sleep. Amy Foster watched her computers with amazement. Captain, the station is responding to our presence. It is trying to establish a communication link. Let it through. A voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfect human English, but with an accent that sounded like it came from very long ago. Welcome home, children of Earth. We have been waiting for you to return. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Who are you? We are the archive, the final record of what came before. We have maintained these stations for 4,000 years, waiting for humanity to reclaim its birthright among the stars. What happened to the ancient human empire? They made a choice, Captain Morrison. When the devourers came from beyond, the galaxy, threatening to consume all life, the human empire chose to sacrifice itself to stop them. They scattered their people to the far edges of space and erased their own history to hide humanity from the enemy. The devourers? Creatures from the dark between galaxies, beings that feed on the life force of entire civilizations. The ancient humans developed weapons that could destroy them, but the cost was too high. To use those weapons, they had to give up everything they had built. Jake looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were learning that their entire species had once been heroes on a galactic scale, sacrificing everything to save other species from destruction. Are the devourers still out there? Jake asked. They were defeated, but their servants remain. Some of the current galactic empires are descended from species that served the devourers willingly. They have been working for thousands of years to make sure humanity never regains its former power. The revelation explained everything. The way the aliens had kept humans confined to the outer rim, the fear in their voices when human technology proved superior, the attempt to destroy human colonies before they could grow too strong. What do we do now? Jake asked. Now, Captain, you choose. The ancient weapons are still here, still functional. You can reclaim your people's heritage and take your place as guardians of the galaxy. But know that doing so will bring challenges you cannot imagine. Jake looked out at the ancient human habitats floating in space like monuments to a forgotten age. His species had given up an empire to save the galaxy once before. Now they had the chance to build something new, something better. Amy, send a message to Earth. Tell them we found our history, and it is time to decide our future. The Stormbreaker had come to the galactic core looking for answers. Instead, they had found the greatest responsibility any species could carry, the power to shape the destiny of an entire galaxy. The storm had reached its eye, the calm moment before the most dangerous part began. The combined fleets of 3 galactic empires gathered above Nexus Prime like storm clouds made of metal and death. 2,000 ships surrounded the ancient human habitats, their weapons charged and ready to destroy what remained of humanity's. Forgotten Heritage. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Stormbreaker, watching the enemy fleet form up for the final attack. Admiral Kethvor of the Zephyrians, Empress Shalandra of the Crystallins, and Queen Mind Nexus of the Bio-Collective had put aside thousands of years of rivalry to face the human threat together. They are really serious about this, said Beth Turner, monitoring alien communications. They are calling it the final cleansing. They want to make sure humans never threaten their power again. Jake nodded, but he was not looking at the enemy fleet. He was watching the ancient human habitats as more and more systems came online. Lights were appearing across their surfaces like stars being born. After 4,000 years of silence, the heart of the old human empire was waking up. Captain, said Amy Foster, I am getting readings from all over the system. Something big is happening. The first sign was a shimmer in space near the largest habitat. The air seemed to fold in on itself, and suddenly a massive structure appeared where nothing had been before. It was a space station the size of a small moon, covered with weapons that looked both ancient and impossibly advanced. Dimensional. Storage. whispered Dr. Susan Lee. The ancient humans had technology that could hide entire fleets in folded space. More stations appeared, then orbital shipyards that immediately began producing ships from stored patterns. But the most amazing sight was the fleet of ancient human vessels that emerged from hidden bases throughout the system. These ships were different from anything the current galaxy had ever seen, sleek and deadly, built by a civilization that had mastered both war and peace. The largest of the ancient ships opened a communication channel to the Stormbreaker. The face that appeared on screen was clearly human, but his eyes held the weight of centuries. "I am Admiral Marcus Stone of the Eternal Watch," he said. "We have guarded these stations since the Great Sacrifice, waiting for our people to return. Welcome home, Captain Morrison." "Admiral Stone," Jake said, trying to keep the amazement out of his voice. "How many ships do you have?" "Enough," Stone replied with a smile. "Our ancestors left us everything we would need to reclaim the galaxy if the time ever came. Today, it seems, that time has arrived." The alien fleets had been expecting to face one human ship. Instead, they found themselves outnumbered for the first time in galactic history. Ancient human vessels surrounded them on all sides, weapons powered by technologies that made current galactic science look primitive. Admiral Kethvor was the first to break. The stunned silence. "This is impossible. Humans are a young species. You have only been in space for a few hundred years." "That is what we wanted you to think," Jake replied, opening a channel to all the alien fleets. "But humans have been among the stars longer than any of your civilizations. We built the first galactic government. We created the technologies you use every day. And when the galaxy was threatened by something worse than war, we sacrificed everything to save you." Empress Shalandra's crystalline features showed disbelief. "The historical records say humans destroyed themselves in civil war." "The historical records lie," said Admiral Stone, joining the conversation. "We wrote those records ourselves to hide the truth. When the Devourers came from the dark between galaxies, only human technology could stop them. But using those weapons required us to give up our empire and scatter our people to the edges of space." Queen Mind Nexus spoke with the voice of trillions of biocollective organisms. "You abandoned the galaxy to save it?" "We did not abandon anything," Jake said. "We went into hiding to protect the galaxy from enemies you could not imagine. Some of your own species served the Devourers willingly, thinking they would be spared when the feeding began. We have been watching you for 4,000 years, making sure those servants never regained their power. The alien fleets were in chaos. Some ships were powering down their weapons, while others were trying to retreat. The commanders of the three empires had built their entire civilizations on the belief that they were the dominant species in the galaxy. Learning that they had always been protected by a hidden human empire shattered everything they thought they knew. But not everyone was ready to accept the truth. A group of Zephyrian ships broke away from the main fleet and opened fire on the nearest human habitat. Their energy beams struck the ancient station's shields and simply disappeared, absorbed by defensive systems that turned hostile energy into harmless light. "Enough," said Admiral Stone quietly. The ancient human fleet responded with weapons that redefined the meaning of overwhelming force. Gravity beams reached out across space and simply stopped the attacking ships dead in their tracks. Energy projectors drained their power systems in seconds. Teleportation technology moved the Zephyrian vessels into holding areas where they could not harm anyone. It was not a battle. It was a demonstration of technology so advanced that resistance was meaningless. "We could have done this at any time." Admiral Stone broadcast to all the alien fleets. "We could have reclaimed our empire by force whenever we chose. But we learned something during the war with the Devourers. True strength comes from protecting others, not conquering them." Over the next few hours, The greatest fleet battle in galactic history turned into the greatest diplomatic meeting. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered aboard the ancient human habitats to learn the real history of their galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison found himself at the center of it all, translating between the ancient human defenders and the else modern galaxy they had protected. Dr. Susan Lee worked with alien scientists to share historical records that had been hidden for millennia. Tony Rodriguez helped demonstrate human weapons technology to alien military leaders who could barely understand what they were seeing. The hardest part was deciding what came next. Some species will never accept human leadership. Admiral Stone warned Jake during a private meeting. They have built their entire identities around being the dominant powers in the galaxy. Then we do not lead them, Jake replied. We do what our ancestors should have done. We share our knowledge and let each species choose their own path. And if they choose to fight us? Jake looked out at the stars where human and alien ships were beginning to work together for the first time in 4,000 years. Then we protect ourselves and anyone else who wants our protection. But we do not conquer. We do not rule. We just make sure the galaxy stays free. The final agreement took weeks to negotiate, but when it was done, it created something the galaxy had never seen before, a true alliance of equals. Some species, like the peaceful ethereal collective, welcomed humanity back to its ancient role as protector. Others, particularly the Zephyrian Empire, chose to withdraw to distant regions of space rather than accept human leadership. Captain Jake Morrison was promoted to admiral and given command of the growing human fleet as more Hurricane-class battleships were built using ancient designs. But his first mission was not conquest or revenge. It was exploration. There are threats out there we have not faced yet, Admiral Stone told him. The Devourers were defeated, but they were not the only danger in the dark between galaxies. Humanity's real work is just beginning. The TFS Stormbreaker led a fleet of mixed human and alien vessels toward unexplored regions of space, where ancient enemies and new challenges waited among the stars. The galaxy had learned that humans were not newcomers, to be tolerated or threats to be eliminated. They were the guardians who had always been there, watching from the shadows, ready to fight for everyone's freedom. Admiral Morrison's final log entry reflected on everything that had changed. Today we learned that strength is not about who can hit the hardest or build the biggest fleet. Real strength is about standing up for others when they cannot stand up for themselves. Our ancestors understood this when they gave up their empire to save the galaxy. Now it is our turn to choose what kind of people we want to be. The hurricane had passed, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed. In the ancient human habitats, children who had never seen sunlight prepared to visit worlds their ancestors had protected for thousands of years. Alien species that had never known the truth began to understand why their civilizations had survived when so many others had fallen. And in the dark, between the stars, new storms were building. But this time, the galaxy would not face them alone. Humanity had come home, and the real adventure was just beginning.
Commander Jack Harris stood at the large window of the Phobos military station and watched the stars. His shift had been quiet for the past 8 hours. Too quiet. After 15 years in Earth's defense fleet, he had learned to trust his gut, and right now his gut was screaming that something was wrong. "Commander, sensors are picking up an anomaly near Mars orbit," said Lieutenant Maya Patel, her voice breaking the silence of the command center. Harris walked quickly to her station and looked at the screen. "What kind of anomaly?" "Unknown, sir. It's massive, and it's like space is bending around it." Before Harris could respond, a flash of light erupted at the coordinates Patel had indicated. When the light faded, a massive ship hung in space. It was obsidian black and stretched nearly 20 kilometers in length. It dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Harris felt his mouth go dry. "Sound the alarm. Contact Earth immediately." Across the solar system, on the blue planet that had been humanity's only home for thousands of years, people went about their regular lives. In New York, children played in parks. In Beijing, workers hurried home after a long day. In Lagos, street vendors sold food to hungry customers. All of this normal activity stopped when every screen on Earth, phones, computers, televisions, suddenly showed the same image. A tall, six-limbed being with iridescent scales and compound eyes. "People of Earth," the creature said in perfect English. "I am High Commander Vex Thraxus of the Zithari Empire. We rule 1,000 worlds across 17 star systems. We have watched your species for decades, and we have decided that you are too unpredictable to exist freely in the cosmos. You will surrender your sovereignty within one Earth rotation, or we will begin immediate eradication of your species." The transmission ended, leaving billions of humans staring at blank screens. In Washington, D.C., President Olivia Green was rushed to a secure bunker beneath the White House. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady as she contacted world leaders. "We need an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council," she told her Chief of Staff, Ben Rogers. "And get me Dr. Alan Kelly. If anyone can help us understand these aliens, it's him." 3 hours later, the most powerful people on Earth gathered in a secure conference room at the UN building in New York. Dr. Alan Kelly, Earth's top expert on potential alien life, stood before them. The Zithari, based on their appearance and what little we can guess about their biology, likely evolved from predator species, Kelly explained. Their compound eyes suggest they can process visual information very differently than we do. The 6 limbs indicate they evolved on a world with different gravity than Earth. "We don't need a biology lesson," said the Russian president. "We need to know if we can fight them." Lieutenant General Susan Rodriguez, head of Earth's Unified Military Command, stepped forward. "Our current weapons may be effective against their troops, but that ship in orbit, we have nothing that can touch it. If they have weapons proportional to their size, they could destroy our major cities within hours." "Could this be a misunderstanding?" asked the German chancellor. "Perhaps a cultural difference?" Dr. Kelly shook his head. Their message was clear and delivered in perfect English. "They've been studying us. This is not a misunderstanding. This is an extinction-level threat." President Green stood up. All eyes turned to her. "We need to buy time. I'll address the world and then respond to the Zithari. In the meantime, I want all military forces on high alert, and I want evacuation plans for major cities activated quietly." She turned to Dr. Kelly. "Keep working on understanding them. Maybe there's something we're missing." 12 hours after the alien ship appeared, President Green stood before cameras in the Oval Office. Her navy blue suit was perfectly pressed, and her gray hair was neatly styled. Nothing in her appearance suggested that the fate of humanity rested on her shoulders. "My fellow citizens of Earth," she began, "today we face the greatest challenge in human history. An alien power has demanded our surrender. They have judged us without knowing us. They have threatened us without provocation. I have consulted with leaders around the world, and our response is unanimous. We will not surrender our freedom." In orbit around Mars, Commander Harris watched the president's speech on a small screen. His crew gathered around him, their faces showing a mixture of fear and determination. "The Zithari may have advanced technology," President Green continued, "but humanity has something they may not understand, an unbreakable spirit. We have faced extinction before, from ice ages, from plagues, from our own nuclear weapons. Each time we have survived. We will survive this too." As the speech ended, Harris received new orders from Earth Command. The Phobos station was to evacuate all non-essential personnel immediately. Only a skeleton crew would remain to monitor the alien ship. "What do you think they'll do?" Patel asked Harris as they prepared the evacuation shuttles. Harris looked at the massive alien vessel on their long-range scanners. "They'll demonstrate their power. They'll try to frighten us into submission." He was right. 1 hour after President Green's speech, Earth sent its official response to the Zithari. "Humanity rejects your demand for surrender. We propose peaceful contact and cultural exchange instead of war. The Zithari response came 5 minutes later. A beam of energy bright as a small sun shot from the alien flagship. It struck the International Space Station, which had been orbiting Earth for over 70 years. The station, home to 30 astronauts from 12 nations, disintegrated instantly. On Phobos, Commander Harris watched the destruction on their sensors. He closed his eyes briefly, saying a silent prayer for the astronauts. When he opened them, his face was set with determination. "Send a message to all ships in the defense fleet," he ordered. "The Zithari have declared war on humanity. From this moment, we are on a war footing." Across Earth, people looked up at the night sky. Many could see a new star, the still glowing debris of the space station. Some people ran to stockpile food and water. Others joined long lines outside military recruitment centers. Parents held their children close and wondered what kind of world they would grow up in. In her office, President Green received word of the space station's destruction. She stood by the window looking up at the sky. Her assistant waited for orders. "They think this show of force will make us surrender," Green said quietly. "They don't understand humans at all." She turned from the window. "Activate Case Blue. I want our missile submarines at maximum readiness. Order all space-capable craft to prepare for defensive operations." The assistant nodded and hurried away. Green looked back at the sky once more. "You declared war on the wrong species," she whispered. War had begun. Humanity's greatest test had arrived. 3 months passed since the Zithari declared war on humanity. Earth's skies, once peaceful and blue, now flashed with light as alien ships moved in orbit. Major cities around the world lay in ruins. New York, Tokyo, London, and Moscow were just memories now. Billions of people had become refugees, walking along highways with whatever they could carry, seeking safety in rural areas. Lieutenant General Susan Rodriguez stared at the large map on the wall of the bunker. Red marks showed Zithari-controlled areas, which included most major cities and military bases. The blue areas, showing human resistance, were getting smaller each day. "The Chinese forces lost Beijing yesterday," said Colonel Frank Peters, pointing to the map. "Their remaining units have gone underground. They'll switch to guerrilla tactics now." Rodriguez nodded. That was the pattern everywhere. Conventional military forces would fight until they could not, then break into smaller units and disappear into the countryside. "What about the European front?" she asked. "Still fighting in the Alps, the mountains give them good cover from orbital strikes." The door to the bunker opened and President Olivia Green walked in. Her face looked thinner than 3 months ago and new lines had formed around her eyes, but her back was straight and her voice was strong. "What's our status, General?" Rodriguez gestured to the map. "We're outgunned and outmatched in conventional warfare, but we're adapting. The Zithari expected us to fight like they do, army against army in the open. They didn't expect us to disappear and strike from the shadows." President Green studied the map. "And the civilian situation?" "Bad, but not hopeless. Many cities were evacuated before they were destroyed. Death toll is in the millions, not billions. People are organizing. They're finding ways to survive." Green nodded slowly. "And our special projects?" Rodriguez pressed a button, and the map changed to show a different display. "Dr. Kelly and his team are making progress. I'll let him explain." On a secure video link, Dr. Alan Kelly appeared. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes and several days of beard growth. Behind him, a team of scientists worked on various equipment. "Madam President, we've been studying the piece of Zithari technology recovered from their downed scout ship. They're advanced, but not in all ways. Their computer systems have vulnerabilities." "What kind of vulnerabilities?" Green asked. Kelly's eyes lit up with excitement. "They never developed cybersecurity to our standards. They haven't needed to. The Empire has been the dominant power for so long that they've never fought an asymmetric war. They've never had to worry about enemies hacking their systems." Engineer Samantha Wright stepped into view beside Kelly. "We're working on a virus that could disable their targeting systems. Not permanently, but long enough to make a difference in battle." "Keep working on it," Green ordered. This might be the advantage we need. The screen changed to show Commander Jack Harris. He stood in what appeared to be the bridge of a spacecraft. The lighting was dim, with only essential systems powered. "Commander Harris, report," said Rodriguez. "The USS Defiance is holding position in the rings of Saturn," Harris replied. "We've been observing Zithari supply convoys moving through the outer solar system. They've established a pattern. They're getting comfortable. They think they've won already." "That's their first mistake," said Green. "What's the status of your ship?" "Our stealth technology is working. They haven't detected us. We've made 5 successful attacks on their supply ships in the past month. Small strikes, nothing that would make them change their overall strategy, but enough to gather intelligence and test their responses." Rodriguez leaned forward. "And what have you learned?" "Their ships are powerful but not very maneuverable in tight spaces. We can use the asteroid belt to our advantage, and they rely heavily on their central command structure. When we jam their ECOT communications, individual ship captains seem hesitant to make decisions." President Green nodded. "Keep hitting them. Keep learning, but stay hidden. The Defiance is one of our last operational military spacecraft. We can't afford to lose you." The meeting continued for another hour. Reports came in from resistance cells around the world. In Paris, resistance fighters had destroyed a Zithari ground patrol. In Sydney, hackers had temporarily disabled an enemy communication tower. Small victories, but they added up. As the meeting ended, Green pulled Rodriguez aside. "Tell me the truth, Susan. Do we have a chance?" Rodriguez thought carefully before answering. "Not in a conventional war. But this isn't conventional anymore. Humans are adaptable. We're learning to fight in ways the Zithari never expected. And there's something else." "What?" "The Zithari aren't killing as many civilians as they could. They're destroying our military and government facilities, but they seem to be avoiding maximum civilian casualties. I think they want our planet intact with enough humans left to, I don't know, use as labor maybe." Green's expression hardened. "That's not going to happen. Not while I'm alive." Far away, on what was once the outskirts of Chicago, a man named Daniel Martinez moved carefully through the ruins of a suburb. Before the war, he had been a police officer. Now he led a group of 30 civilians who had become an effective resistance cell. Martinez stopped and raised his hand, signaling the others to freeze. Ahead, a Zithari patrol moved through the street. 4 soldiers, each nearly 7 feet tall with their distinctive 6 limbs and scaled skin. They carried weapons that fired pulses of energy that could turn a human to ash. Martinez touched the radio at his belt and whispered a code word. 2 blocks away, a car alarm started blaring. The Zithari soldiers turned toward the sound, their compound eyes scanning for threats. That's when Martinez and his team attacked. They didn't use guns. Ammunition was too scarce. Instead, they used homemade explosives crafted from fertilizer and household chemicals. The first blast took out 2 of the aliens. The second missed but created enough confusion for Martinez's team to close in with makeshift spears, metal pipes sharpened to fine points. 60 seconds after it began, the fight was over. 4 dead Zithari soldiers lay in the street. Martinez's team had suffered 1 injury, a broken arm. They quickly stripped the aliens of their weapons and communication devices. "Get this to the tech team," Martinez told his second-in-command, handing over the Zithari devices. "And tell them to hurry. I think we just found a way into the enemy's forward base." In orbit around Neptune, Commander Harris watched as yet another Zithari supply convoy passed through the outer solar system. The massive ships moved with arrogant confidence, never suspecting that humans were watching from the darkness. "They think they've won," Harris said softly. "They have no idea what's coming." Lieutenant Patel looked up from her console. "Sir, we just received a coded message from Earth Command. Operation Trojan Horse is being prepared. They want us ready in 30 days. Harris smiled for the first time in months. "Send our acknowledgement. The Defiance will be ready." Across Earth and throughout the solar system, humanity prepared to strike back. They weren't fighting a conventional war anymore. They were fighting a guerrilla campaign against an occupying force. And despite the overwhelming technological advantage of the Zithari, humans were remarkably good at being unpredictable. The real war was just beginning. 6 months into the war, Supreme Commander Vexithraxis stood on the command deck of his flagship in Earth orbit. His scaled skin had lost some of its shine, and his compound eyes showed signs of stress that another Zithari would recognize instantly. The humans continue to resist in ways that defy military logic, he told his second-in-command. We control their orbital space. We have destroyed their major military bases, yet they refuse to surrender. The second-in-command, Sub-Commander Zilvok, studied the holographic display showing the status of Zithari forces on Earth. Red dots blinked across the map, indicating attacks on their troops. These resistance fighters do not behave as soldiers should, Zilvok said. They attack and then disappear. They do not wear uniforms. They use primitive explosives and even sharpened metal poles as weapons. Vexithraxis made a gesture of frustration with his upper limbs. What should have been a simple pacification mission has turned into a protracted conflict. The High Council demands answers. On Earth, in the ruins of Chicago, Daniel Martinez led his team through the underground tunnel system. Old subway tunnels and storm drains had become the highways of the resistance, allowing humans to move unseen by Zithari patrols and their aerial drones. Everyone clear on the plan? Martinez asked as they approached their target, a Zithari forward operating base established in what had once been Grant Park. His team nodded. They carried a mix of stolen Zithari weapons and homemade explosives. Their faces were grim but determined. Remember, our primary objective is to capture their communication hub intact. The secondary objective is to retrieve any data or technology we can. Fighting is the last resort. They waited until night fell before making their move. The darkness gave them an advantage. Humans could see better in low light than the Zithari, who evolved on a planet with 3 suns. The raid went better than expected. Using stolen access codes provided by resistance hackers, they entered the base through a service entrance. 2 guards were silently neutralized. They reached the communication hub without raising the alarm. Download everything, Martinez ordered as one of his team, a former IT specialist, plugged a device into the Zithari computer system. We have 5 minutes before they detect the intrusion. 4 minutes later, they were racing back through the tunnels, carrying a portable hard drive with stolen Zithari data. They had also taken something unexpected, a Zithari neural implant from one of the guards. In the hidden laboratory in New Zealand, Dr. Alan Kelly studied the neural implant under a microscope. His eyes widened as he realized what he was seeing. This is incredible, he told Samantha Wright, who worked at a computer nearby. Their neural networks are sensitive to certain electromagnetic frequencies. That's why they have this shielding around their implants. Wright looked up from her computer. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Kelly nodded, excitement building in his voice. We could create devices that emit targeted EM bursts at the right frequency. It would disrupt their neural networks, without harming humans or infrastructure. Pulse bombs, Wright said, already starting to sketch designs on her tablet. We could build them using parts from microwave ovens and old radio equipment, things people can find in abandoned cities. Kelly picked up a secure phone. I need to speak to General Rodriguez immediately. We've found a weakness. In orbit, around Jupiter, Commander Harris and the crew of the USS Defiance watched as a Zithari battlecruiser moved through space. The human ship was hidden in the shadow of one of Jupiter's smaller moons. Their engines leave an ionic trail that we can track, Lieutenant Patel explained, pointing to her sensor readings. And look at how they move. Always in straight lines, always at the same speed. They're predictable. Harris nodded thoughtfully. They've never had to worry about being hunted. They've always been the hunters. Sir, called the communications officer, encrypted message from Earth Command. Operation Trojan Horse is moving to Phase 2. We're ordered to begin our part in 2 weeks. Harris smiled grimly. Send acknowledgement, then set course for the asteroid belt. We need to prepare our surprise for our Zithari friends. President, Green now operated from a mobile command center that changed location every 48 hours. The Zithari had placed a massive bounty on her head, making her the most hunted human on Earth. General Rodriguez briefed her on the latest developments. Dr. Kelly's pulse bomb technology works. We've tested it on captured Zithari equipment. We're distributing the designs to resistance cells worldwide. And the cyber attack? Green asked. Samantha Wright and her team have completed the virus. When activated, it will disable the targeting systems on their orbital platforms for approximately 30 minutes. Green considered this information. That's our window then. 30 minutes to launch a coordinated global counterattack. She looked at Rodriguez. Will it be enough time? It has to be, Rodriguez answered simply. Green nodded and made her decision. Authorize Operation Trojan Horse. Send the go code to all resistance cells and to Commander Harris. Across Earth, resistance fighters prepared. The pulse bomb design spread rapidly through secure networks. People built them from scavenged electronics. Former soldiers trained civilians in combat tactics. Doctors stockpiled medical supplies for the inevitable casualties. In orbit, the Zithari remained unaware of what was coming. They continued their methodical occupation, establishing more bases, sending more troops to trouble spots, never realizing that their every move was being watched and recorded by humans looking for patterns and weaknesses. In what was once Silicon Valley, a team of hackers led by Wright worked day and night in an underground bunker. Their computers weren't connected to any network that the Zithari could detect. They refined their virus, making it undetectable until the moment of activation. The Zithari computer architecture is actually quite primitive in some ways, Wright explained to her team. They've never needed to develop sophisticated cybersecurity because they've never fought an enemy capable of hacking their systems. Until now, one of the hackers added with a grim smile. In space, the USS Defiance rendezvoused with a dozen small, stealthy spacecraft hidden throughout the asteroid belt. These ships were crewed by civilians, former satellite engineers, amateur astronomers, and space enthusiasts who had volunteered for what might be a suicide mission. Each ship has been equipped with a modified pulse bomb powerful enough to disable a Zithari cruiser, Harris explained to the volunteer captains. Your job is to get close enough to deliver it, then get away if you can. And if we can't get away? Asked one of the captains. Harris met her eyes steadily. Then you will have died ensuring humanity's survival. On the day before the planned attack, President Green recorded a message to be broadcast worldwide once Operation Trojan Horse began. Her words were simple but powerful. Tomorrow humanity fights back. Not as nations, not as armies, but as one species defending our right to exist. The Zithari thought they knew what humans were capable of. They were wrong. In Chicago, Daniel Martinez and his team prepared their weapons. In New Zealand, Dr. Kelly monitored resistance communications. In orbit around Mars, Commander Harris and the crew of the USS Defiance ran final system checks. And in his flagship above Earth, Supreme Commander Vex Thraxis received a disturbing report about unusual energy signatures being detected across the planet. Before he could investigate further, all of his screens suddenly went black. Operation Trojan Horse had begun. The morning light crept slowly across the small room where Emma sat, her mind still spinning from the events of the past few days. She looked down at the old map spread out on the wooden table, its edges worn and yellowed with age. The lines and markings seemed to whisper secrets, telling stories of hidden paths and forgotten places. Emma traced her finger along the faded blue lines that marked a river running through the dense forest. She remembered what the old man at the village market had told her just 2 days ago. His words echoed in her mind, carrying a mix of warning and hope. He had spoken about a hidden valley where time seemed to move differently, where ancient stories came to life. The room was quiet, save for the soft ticking of an old clock on the wall. Dust particles danced in the sunlight that filtered through the single window. Emma knew she could not stay here much longer. Her journey was far from over, and every moment counted. She packed her small bag carefully. Inside, she placed the map, a small water bottle, some dried food, and the strange compass her grandmother had given her years ago. The compass was unlike any other she had seen. Its needle did not point north but seemed to move with a mind of its own, spinning and pointing in directions that made no sense. Outside, the world was waking up. Birds sang their morning songs and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of nearby trees. Emma stepped out of the small cottage, her boots making soft sounds on the ground. She knew the forest would be her next challenge. The path ahead was not clear. Trees stood tall and close together, creating a green wall that seemed to block her way. But Emma was not afraid. She had come too far to turn back now. Her grandmother's stories had prepared her for this moment, though she did not fully understand everything yet. As she walked, the forest around her began to change. The trees seemed to grow taller, their branches reaching out like long fingers. Shadows moved in strange ways, and sometimes Emma thought she heard whispers just beyond her hearing. But she kept moving forward, one step at a time. Her backpack felt heavy, but her spirit was light. She thought about the stories her grandmother used to tell her, stories of people who had gone on impossible journeys, who had found courage when everything seemed lost. Those stories had always given her strength. The sun climbed higher in the sky, but little light reached the forest floor. Emma moved carefully, watching where she placed her feet. Roots twisted across the ground like sleeping snakes, and moss covered large stones that looked like they had been there for hundreds of years. Suddenly she stopped. Something had changed in the forest around her. The air felt different, cooler, and filled with a strange energy. Emma took out the compass her grandmother had given her. To her surprise, the needle was spinning wildly, not settling in any one direction. She knew this was a sign. Something important was about to happen. Her heart beat faster, but she remained calm. Years of listening to her grandmother's tales had taught her to be patient and observant. In the distance, she heard a sound. It was not an animal. It was not the wind. It was something else entirely. A low humming noise that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Emma took a deep breath. She knew her real journey was just beginning. Whatever was waiting for her in this mysterious forest, she was ready to face it. The stories of her past had prepared her for this moment, and her courage would guide her forward. The forest watched her, silent and patient, holding its secrets close. And Emma walked on, each step taking her closer to a destiny she was only beginning to understand. The humming sound grew stronger. Emma could feel it in her bones, a vibration that seemed to come from the ground itself. She stopped walking and looked around. The forest had changed again. The trees now stood in perfect lines, almost like soldiers waiting for a command. Her grandmother's compass continued to spin wildly. Emma pulled it closer, studying its strange movements. The needle jumped and danced, pointing in directions that made no sense. She knew this was not normal. Something magical was happening around her. A small clearing appeared ahead. Emma stepped carefully, her boots making soft sounds on the soft ground. In the center of the clearing stood a large stone. It was not like other stones she had seen before. This one seemed to glow with a soft light, as if it had its own inner fire. The stone was covered in strange marks. They looked like writing, but not in any language Emma knew. The symbols were curved and smooth, almost like dancing lines that told a story. She reached out her hand, feeling drawn to touch the stone. Just before her fingers could reach the surface, a sound made her stop. It was like a whisper, but not from a person. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere. Emma looked around, her heart beating fast. The forest seemed to be watching her. She remembered her grandmother's words. "Listen to the world around you," she used to say. "Sometimes the most important messages come when you are quiet and still." Emma took a deep breath and closed her eyes. The forest sounds changed. Instead of the usual bird calls and wind sounds, she heard something else. It was like music, but not music made by instruments. This was a sound that came from the trees, the ground, the air itself. Each note told a part of a story. When Emma opened her eyes, she saw something incredible. The stone was now glowing brighter. The strange symbols on its surface began to move. They shifted and changed, creating patterns that seemed to tell a story of their own. A path appeared. It was not there before. Emma was sure of it. The path wound through the trees, made of smooth stones that seemed to shine with a soft light. It was an invitation, she knew. But an invitation to what? Her backpack felt heavy on her shoulders. Inside, she carried the few things that might help her on this strange journey. The map her grandmother had given her, the special compass, some water and food. Each item felt important, like a piece of a bigger puzzle. Emma took one step forward, then another. The path seemed to welcome her, the stones almost glowing brighter with each step she took. The forest around her was alive with movement, though nothing seemed to be actually moving. Memories of her grandmother's stories came back to her. Stories about hidden worlds, places where magic was real, lands where time worked differently. Emma had always thought they were just stories. Now she was not so sure. The path continued. Trees on both sides stood tall and straight, creating a green tunnel. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating patterns of light and shadow. Emma felt like she was walking through a dream. Something moved in the corner of her eye. She turned quickly but saw nothing, just trees and more trees. But she knew something was watching her, not in a scary way, more like someone was guiding her. Her compass had stopped spinning. Now it pointed in one clear direction, straight, ahead, along the path. Emma knew this was important. This was not a normal compass. This was a special tool, given to her by her grandmother for this exact moment. The air felt different here. It was clearer, fresher. Emma could smell something, sweet, like flowers and rain and something else she could not name. It was the smell of magic, she thought. If magic had a smell, this would be it. Another sound caught her attention. Soft music. Not from an instrument, but from the wind moving through the trees. It was a song without words, a melody that spoke directly to her heart. Emma felt like she was being welcomed, invited to something special. She walked on. Each step took her deeper into the mysterious forest. Each step brought her closer to something she did not yet understand. But she was not afraid. Her grandmother's stories had prepared her for this moment. The path continued. The forest watched, and Emma walked forward, ready to discover the secrets that waited for her.